I've recently been playing a computer game. It's also a mobile game as well, but I play it on my laptop here that I record this podcast on. It's a game called War Thunder. And in the game, you operate as a either airline pilot fighting with fighter jets or bombers and basically attack aircraft. You can also be a tank commander. You can fight with different tanks across different countries across different eras as well, starting from World War One all the way up until current day. You can also do ships as well, so you're piloting naval vessels, shooting missiles at each other. And one of the aspects of the game, particularly when it comes to the tanks, is that you have, say, a crew of five members running your tank. You have a guy who's guiding it. You have a guy who's manning a machine gun. You have a guy who's there for repairs. You have a guy who's firing the actual artillery rounds, and then you have a guy who's reloading. And one of the things about that game is when you get hit by another player in their tank, you see the impact from that shell into the tank, and you can see where it goes. It ricochets this part, it hits this crew member of yours, it hits that crew member of yours, and then you respawn, but you're not able to use that tank for the rest of the game. And why am I bringing this up? Recently, I saw something on Instagram for a Netflix documentary on World War II. And I really want to watch it because one of the things that I obviously have no experience with is World War II and World War One. Even the Vietnam War and many of those later wars, even the Iraq War a little bit, I have almost no relation to, not many people that I know have any real experience with any of those wars. And certainly people that I wouldn't feel comfortable having a conversation about what it's like to be a soldier during that time. But I think oftentimes when we think of war and a great movie that I recently saw with my friends James, Fury with Brad Pitt. One of the things about war that we often see is that it's glamorized a lot. It's Call of Duty, like where bombs are going off and you're the hero, you're saving the day. But in reality, and Fury did a good job at portraying what real World War II tank battles looked like when the American tanks were not up to snuff with the German tanks and they were getting beaten every single chance that they could. And they were getting ambushed and they just couldn't match the German tanks. And sometimes it would take up to three, four tanks to take out one German tank, three American tanks. And one of the things that I thought about that movie after watching it, and I thought about today while seeing this trailer for this World War II documentary, is just war is never something that we as a civilization can allow. It's something that causes so much destruction and so little good. The cons very much outweigh the pros. And unfortunately, you are in many areas of the world. You have territorial disputes. You have people who in the past had crimes committed against them, and now they want retribution for those crimes committed against them because their fathers and their grandfathers and their great grandfathers were killed at the hands of whoever. And so they want to retaliate and they want justice and they do deserve justice, but does that mean that we have these endless wars on this planet that continue on and on and on? Because at the end of the day, it's not like you're playing a video game. You're not playing War Thunder and oh, my tank got taken out. Oh, three of my crew members are lost. I guess I got to respawn with a different tank. No, it truly is one of the most serious subjects and serious topics that I feel like a lot of people think that it should be something that we outlaw. We should not do it anymore. But Unfortunately, there is a lot of money that is tied up in this industry, in the creation of weapons and ammunition. And here in America, where I live, is one of the prime examples of people who love guns. And I have no issue with guns. I've shot before and I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy it. And I think people should absolutely have the right to have a gun on them for self-defense, for whatever they deem to use it for, obviously legally. But one of the things that you see here in America, and you probably see elsewhere, but I live in America, so I'll use this as an example. You see that we've been involved in so many wars across seas, and we've luckily haven't had a war on American soil in quite some time, where there's a foreign nation, say China, Russia, or whatever country you may think of, comes to American soil and starts killing civilians, starts taking over military bases. That has not happened in my lifetime. But could it happen? 100%. And I think it's important for one of the underlying themes of my show now as a 25-year-old, it's 2024, January 10th. One of the things that I think is extremely important is putting out this message of war, I don't think is really ever justified. That includes, we could take a great example. We're talking about World War II, for example. Pearl Harbor. Those Pearl Harbor attacks were atrocious. Not not good whatsoever. But on that same coin, I don't think it was good. I don't think it was amazing that the American military went overseas and started dropping bombs and dropping troops off and deploying troops to these foreign lands and fighting all the way in Europe to defeat who they believed were the evil and in many times were evil people. But I want to think that there could become a day where we are able to negotiate. We're able to sit down at a table with each other with these different nations that we vehemently disagree with, that we think are just pure evil, do not have anybody's interest at heart but their own. And the more and more I grow up and the more I get older, the more I realize that for this planet, I don't see that. And I think part of the reason is because of countries that are so determined to increase their own, say, GDP or their own power within a region. And what ends up happening is if there's somebody who tries and defeats them or tries to hinder their movement into a different territory, or in America's case, sometimes in the resources such as oil or natural gas, we get defensive because those are our resources for our people. However, if we are going to move forward as a civilization, if we are going to move forward as a society, it's extremely important for us to do everything that we can to not go into war and to advocate for peace. Because a lot of times what ends up happening with war is, let's say, yeah, America was successful in World War II. How many bloodlines were ended? How many people were killed in just World War II? Take even a battle. Say there's even, we'll go to the smallest scale, a tank battalion where there's five guys running in a tank, and they get hit by one shell. Or somebody throws a grenade on the inside of that tank, and those people are killed and they're lost forever. Is there any retribution? Is there any justice? Is there any glory in that? Sure, they might get a Purple Heart, they might get a medal, but they're gone. And their families are forever shattered because of that. Families ripped apart because their father or their mother or their cousin or their brother's sister is not coming home. because of the actions of these governments who want to wage war against each other. The cost of it is human life. And for me, that's literally the most important thing on this particular planet, because without life, I'm not here being able to have this conversation with you. I I don't know exactly what my point is with it, but I think that in just about 100% of the cases, we should advocate for peace. There's many wars going on right now, and basically my take on basically every single one of those is how can we have peace? How can we make concessions so that, hey, maybe we lose a little bit of resources, maybe we give them a little bit of money, but we guarantee that less people are going to die. Now, maybe I'm just a naive 25-year-old who thinks that the world is amazing, and I haven't been to some of these places. I don't know these people, know what kind of monsters they are. They can't be negotiated with. Maybe that's true. But where I sit right now here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I see the way that this world is going, and I'm thinking 5, 10, 15 centuries from now, and this culture that we have of you hurt me, so I hurt you. And then they hurt me, so now I hurt you. This back and forth until there's a surrender. And then even sometimes after the surrender, you put sanctions on them. And then you, for generations later, if those people emigrate to your country, you have a distaste for them. I mean, there's just horrible stuff that happens on this planet. And it's my hope that maybe someday we could find a better solution rather than firing projectiles at each other and creating explosions and killing each other. But I think War Thunder is still a fun game, but just something I wanted to start the podcast off with today. I guess it's kind of a more somber note, but with all the different conflicts that are happening around our globe, I think it's important to reiterate the importance of peace, the importance of spreading out this idea that isn't American in any way, is peace, negotiations, which America in the past couple of years, I mean, you saw the Afghanistan withdrawal in most recent years. It's a good thing that we were able to get out of there and to kind of put a damper on that war. But still, the withdrawal was not ideal. And still, there were people who were killed. And still today in that country, there are people being killed. And it feels as though it's a never ending battle. But I hope that maybe one day there could be some kind of world where there is maybe 10% of what we have right now in terms of the fighting globally. I don't think it'll ever be zero because I mean, even here in Pittsburgh, there are stories quite frequently of somebody getting into an argument over a CBD cartridge or getting into an argument over somebody not giving them the rest of their French fries at McDonald's. And these people, for whatever reason, just decide to open fire and start shooting. It's a weird world that we live in, and hopefully we are around long enough as humans here to change the future. But I don't know. I don't know. Play War Thunder though. Although I do say that is especially when you're a tank commander, because tank commander you can actually see the guys where the bullets go through the actual tanks and where it hits them and how they die. You don't really see that too much with the planes or the ships that you'll use. But still, it's a very fun game. It just takes forever to make any progress. But I do recommend it. Anyways, moving on into our first story. What's going on in MIT? MIT.edu, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. What is this? Engineers develop a vibrating ingestible capsule that might help treat obesity. Swallowing the device before a meal could create a sense of fullness, tricking the brain into thinking it's time to stop eating. From Ann Trafton at MIT News. This is December 22nd. Okay, so it kind of starts off when you eat a large meal, your stomach sends signals to your brain that create a feeling of fullness. A stomach full of liquid can also send these messages. MIT engineers have now come up with a new way to take the advantage of that phenomenon, using an ingestible capsule that vibrates within the stomach. These vibrations activate the same stretch receptors that sense when the stomach is distended, creating an illusionary sense of fullness. Interesting. I wonder how that would feel though. I guess we'll get into it, but right off the bat, how does that feel? Does it feel good? In animals who were given this pill 20 minutes before eating, the researchers found that this treatment not only stimulated the release of hormones that signal satiety, but also reduced the animal's food intake by about 40%. Scientists have much to learn about the mechanisms that influence human body weight, but if further research suggests this technology could be safely used in humans, such a pill might offer a minimally invasive way to treat obesity. Quote, for somebody who wants to lose weight or control their appetite, it could be taken before each meal. This could be really interesting in that it would provide an option that could minimize the side effects that we see with the other pharmacological treatments out there. And there are many pharmacological treatments that people have been doing to kind of help lose weight. And also, I mean, the main thing is satiety. So satiety is basically just the feeling of you're full. Sometimes if you have that's why a lot of people like to do things such as salads, because salads are basically calorie non-existent, but they take up a lot of space. And so they'll fill up your stomach and your stomach will expand. And then, like it says here, the actual stomach walls expanding sends a signal to your brain saying, hey, we can't fit anything else in here. Stop eating. So then it sends out those hormones that say, hey, I'm not hungry anymore. All right, coming up next, a sense of fullness. When the stomach becomes distended, specialized cells called mechanoreceptors sense that stretching and send signals to the brain via the vagus nerve. As a result, the brain stimulates production of insulin, as well as hormones such as C-peptide, PYY, and GLP-1. All of these hormones work together to help people digest their food, feel full, and stop eating. At the same time, levels of ghrelin, a hunger-promoting hormone, go down. One of the things, I probably talked to him about him before on the podcast, but more plates, more dates. Derek, YouTube page. He now owns a supplement company and also a Merrick Health. They do stuff with like hormones with people with testosterone and other kinds of what you would classify as steroids as well. And they do blood work. They do a bunch of stuff. So Derek does a bunch, but he did a video kind of breaking down what actually ghrelin is and how some people are predisposed to have higher or lower thresholds at what the ghrelin will potentially do. Now, they say ghrelin here, a hunger promoting hormone. So some people naturally will have a higher level of ghrelin, whereas some people will have a lower. And those people that are lower tend to be, I believe, female, because females usually, unless they're pregnant, do not need to eat as many calories as, say, a typical man does, where a man is putting on a lot more muscle mass and they also have a higher bone density. So basically, their bodies typically use more energy, so they need to eat more. So their ghrelin levels are higher on average than a typical woman. And one of the things that I think is cool about this is that ghrelin is something that can be, in some cases, can be kind of not, I wouldn't say manipulated, but if it's something that is understood, sometimes you can understand when you're actually hungry versus when you just want a snack. When you're bored and you're at work, you're in the office and you've been sitting there for about 2 hours and you're like, ah, man, I got a meeting coming up in about an hour. I don't have much work left to do. Let me go to the vending machine and get a snack out. And that type of hunger, which I have fallen into that hole many times before, that kind of hunger is sometimes due to your ghrelin receptors and also based on your own behaviors saying, we got to get some stuff in here. We got to fill some time. Let's go eat something. And usually that thing that you go reach to eat I don't know, isn't a slice of steak. Usually it's a slice of pizza. Or it's not strawberries, it's usually a Snickers bar. So that's ghrelin a little bit. And also check out More Plates, More Dates. I mean, fantastic YouTube page. All right. Uh, while a graduate student at MIT, Sarnivasan became interested in the idea of controlling this process by artificially stretching the mechanoreceptors that line the stomach through vibration. Previous research has shown that vibration applied to a muscle can induce a sense that the muscle has stretched farther than it actually has. I wonder if we could activate stretch receptors in the stomach by vibrating them and having them perceive that the entire stomach has been expanded to create an illusionary sense of distension that could modulate hormones and eating patterns. Very. For the study, Srinivasan, Traverso, and a team of researchers designed a capsule about the size of a multivitamin that includes a vibrating element. When the pill, which is powered by a small silver oxide battery, reaches the stomach, acidic gastric fluids dissolve a gelatinous membrane that covers the capsule, completing the electronic circuit that activates the vibrating motor. In a study in animals, the research showed that once the pill begins vibrating, it activates mechanoreceptors, which send signals to the brain through stimulation of the vagus nerve. The researchers tracked hormone levels during the periods when the device was vibrating and found that they mirror the hormone release patterns seen following a meal, even when the animal had fasted. The researchers then tested the effects of this stimulation on the animal's appetite. They found that when the pill was activated for about 20 minutes before the animals were offered food, they consumed 40% less on average than they did when the pill was not activated. So 40% less. The animals also gained weight more slowly during periods when they were treated with a vibrating pill. Okay. The current version of this pill is designed to vibrate for about 30 minutes after arriving in the stomach, but the researchers plan to explore the possibility of adapting it to remain in the stomach for longer periods of time where it could be turned on and off wirelessly as needed. In the animal studies, the pill passed through the digestive tract within 4 or 5 days. The study also found that the animals did not show any signs of obstruction, perforation, or other negative impacts while the pill was in their digestive tract. That's a little interesting that it stays in there for that long. And that they would want it to stay in there for longer so that you could turn it off and on. That would be crazy. And I think that would easily get abused. You just have it vibrating on your stomach 24 hours a day. I could see that. An alternative approach. This type of pill could offer an alternative to the current approaches to treating obesity, the researchers say. Non-medical interventions such as diet, exercise don't always work, and many of the existing medical interventions are fairly invasive. These include gastric bypass surgery, as well as gastric balloons, which are no longer used widely in the United States due to safety concerns. I mean, listen to this. Non-medical interventions such as diets. Now there's no comma in here. I think this is just two different words, diet and exercise. Diet and exercise don't always work. Now, here's the thing. It's very specific and it's subjective. So people can go on a diet and people can exercise 6 hours a day and they cannot lose weight. And the thing that happens is one of the things, if I have some people who have asked me at work, what can I do to lose weight? I'm trying to lose an extra 5 pounds. And the number one thing that I say is download either an app like Chronometer or Chronometer, however you pronounce it, or get an app like MyFitnessPal, where you can track everything that you eat. So let's say, for example, this morning I had pancakes and I just use liquid egg whites and then the Kodiak pancakes powder, and I whisk it up and then I pour that into a skillet. Okay. And I can measure how much I actually put in the mixture and how much liquid egg whites I use because I have a scale so I can see how many grams I'm using of each. Okay. And so then boom, and then I take it off and then I eat it and I add a little syrup. Okay. So I had those Kodiak pancakes and I had those liquid egg whites, right? No. What else do you have to track? Part of that meal was you adding oil to the pan. How much oil did you add? I like to use coconut oil. Um, so I put a spoonful of coconut oil. How much is a spoonful? Is it 10 grams? Is it 50 grams? Is it 75? Because each of those have a drastic difference because fat has 9 calories in it per gram compared to carbs and protein, which are 4 calories per every gram. So if you're using 10 to 50, if you're within that range and you're on the lower end, you're going to be having a lot less calories than if you're on that higher end of that. So you need to, if you want to be diligent about losing weight and you want to make sure that you're actually having, say, 2,000 or 2,500 or 1,500 calories a day, these are the things you need to be tracking. Then after, when you're putting your maple syrup on, even if you don't want to use a sugar-free maple syrup, I certainly like to use just the Costco maple syrup brand because I've tried the no sugar maple syrup, and I just think I have to find the right one because a lot of times it's just I grew up with maple syrup. I'm from southeastern Connecticut. I had a lot of places that had maple syrup around me, and obviously we have Vermont that's right up there. And so we would go to the store and there would always be Vermont maple syrup if you couldn't get any local ones. So that's kind of what I grew up on. I've never been big into the Mrs. Butterworth kind of um, maple syrup, and that's kind of the same taste of the sugar-free, the very healthy kinds of maple syrup. But for myself, I'm fine having the maple syrup that comes out of the tree because the taste is so much better than the sugar-free. So for me, I would weigh out how much maple syrup I'm having, and then that would be my meal. And that would be one entry. And then say going into lunchtime, you have some ground beef and a meal I made last night, ground beef with Gouda cheese uh and then I literally add sugar-free ketchup and a little bit of hot sauce. If I was trying to lose weight and I wanted to be diligent about it, I would track literally all of those ingredients. How much Gouda cheese did I put in? How much uh ketchup did I put in? All of that matters because at the end of the day, all of that determines the amount of calories and the amount of energy that you're putting into your body that your body either has to use and burn off or it has to store in terms of fat. So to say that diet doesn't always work, I have some issue with. Exercise, certainly, I would agree far more. Exercise doesn't always work. If you run, say, 10, 15 miles a day and you eat the same thing, maybe you'll notice some changes if you don't change anything with your diet from what you currently are doing. Maybe there won't be any significant changes and there might be some better ways, but if you change your diet, if you're eating clean and you're eating, I know exactly that I'm eating 2,000 calories. And I have a rough estimate that I'm burning about 2,500 on a day, even without exercising or doing anything, just kind of digesting the food, walking around at the office, and going about my day. I burn about 2,500, let's say. If you're eating 2,000 calories and it's a legit 2,000 calories, it's not 2,000 calories where you're not tracking the minute details of how much oil you're putting into your pan, how much sauce you're putting onto your eggs or whatever it is. If you're not being that diligent, then maybe your 2,000 turns into 2,300. You still might be at a deficit, but if you're looking to be at a 500 calorie deficit every single day for a week so that you can lose however many pounds over the span of a specific time frame, then you could be like, wait, it's 4 weeks and I've only lost 2 pounds. I should have lost at least 8 at this point. Well, it's because that you're not tracking correctly. If your diet is 100% locked in, is 100% on time, and you got everything, all of your numbers put in, and you're still not losing weight, go back and see what you missed. Because 10 times out of 10, it is something that you are not tracking. It's a cookie, it's a donut that you get from the office, it's an extra drink. It's just, if you want to be committed and you want to be 100% serious about losing the weight, you have to go to extreme measures. Unfortunately, that's just how it works. So I would disagree that a non-medical intervention such as diet doesn't always work. Diet is something that, no, diets work. Diets work. If you, in the sense that if you eat less calories than you burn, 100% of the time you're going to lose weight. You're going to get healthier. Now, if you're doing a diet like keto, like I've done in the past, and you're not tracking calories, you're just drinking bacon grease, you're eating the most fatty stuff that you could possibly think of, the fattiest meat cuts, and you're just eating meat, you're having 3, 4, 5 steaks a day, and you're saying, well, it's my diet. My diet's carnivore. My diet's keto. My diet's vegan, all this stuff. You can still eat more. And then, say 4 or 5 months down the road, you get sick of the diet and you're like, you know what? I'm going to have a cookie. Or, you know what? I've been vegan for 8 months. I think I'm going to have a steak. That's some of the issues that you have with the diet where it's restrictive, where you're saying, I won't eat this or I won't eat that. You should probably eat whatever the hell you want to. It's just, if you're looking to be healthy and you're looking to lose weight, make sure that you're tracking, making sure that you're looking at what you're eating. You look at, okay, this says a serving size is 2 tablespoons and that's 15 calories. Okay. How much is a tablespoon? All right. Yeah, let me try and do 2 of those and just kind of guesstimate it. That's a good way so that you don't have to go into an app and track everything. If you kind of just eyeball things too, that makes it a lot more easier to realize just how much you're actually eating. Now, that's my gripe with exercise. I can definitely agree, because a lot of people, especially if you're older, exercise really isn't the answer. If you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to get in shape, it's great for your joints. It's great for your muscles, obviously. It's also great for you mentally. There's many good parts of exercise, but to use it primarily as a weight loss tool is not the most effective thing. Diet, diet, diet. What you're putting into your body is 100% going to dictate whether you gain weight, whether you lose weight, and whether you're healthy or not. All right. All right. The researchers now plan to explore ways to scale up the manufacturing of the capsules, which could eliminate clinical trials in humans. Such studies would be important to learn more about the device's safety, as well as determine the best time to swallow the capsules before to a meal. Why are there so many grammatical errors in this? It's weird. The best time to swallow the capsule before a meal and how often it would need to be administered. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Moving on to so I guess kind of to wrap this up is, I'll be interested to see if this device actually comes to market, and see what more kind of research is done into this because there's so many people who are looking for a quote unquote shortcut to losing weight. A lot of times to buy the super healthy foods and different shakes or whatever you want to do and the protein powders and all that stuff that a lot of people believe is very healthy, and in many cases it is. Sometimes that's just way too expensive for people. They have a limited budget. Like I have a limited budget. I can't go to Whole Foods every week and just buy a $20 chicken breast and eat that every single week. It would be very hard for me to pay my bills and try and go to Whole Foods and get the best organic fruits and vegetables and do all that stuff. So I understand that price is a very important factor when it comes to people actually losing weight, because there are many things at the dollar store that are not the healthiest for you. They do have some beef jerky there, which is very healthy, especially if you can get eye of round beef jerky, which is just a specific cut of meat that's very lean. So there's not a lot of fat, so it's basically just protein. But I mean, outside of the dollar store, which I love the dollar store, the dollar stores out here are very, very high quality in that they have name brand stuff. I mean, we got I've probably drank them on the podcast before, but Alani's, not just Alani energy drinks, but Alani protein shakes as well, which is 140 calories with 20 grams of protein. And they taste really good. And they mix really good as well. So that's something that I've done to kind of keep my diet in check while also trying to save money. But for people who are looking for a way to reduce the amount of calories that they're intaking and trying to cut back on eating, maybe this pill is right for them. Now, being in your body 4 or 5 days is a little interesting to me because if you increase the amount of people that are using this 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, thousands and thousands of people using this, maybe you could start to arise some people. It gets stuck in their digestive tract, and then how do you get that out? And it's vibrating in your large intestine. That probably doesn't feel amazing. But moving on, let's talk about bottles, water bottles. Just for the occasion, because of the story, I'm bringing my blender bottle. I've had this for like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, I guess 2 years, right? 2 years, maybe. I don't know. I've had it for a while. But it's metal. It's not like the regular blender or shaker bottles that are plastic. It's metal, so the inside is stainless steel. Keeps it cold very, very long and really helps with not making it smell, especially if you're going to be having protein shakes, if you're going to have any type of milk products in there. I've only done it a couple of times just because I have the dollar store protein shakes. Now I haven't bought in protein powder in maybe about 2 or 3 months, maybe. It's been quite a time since I've had actual protein powder and made protein powder type of drinks or anything. But this story is something that has kind of exploded. I saw Joe Rogan posted about it, a bunch of other CBS News, NBC, CNN, all these different places have kind of been talking about this story. So, what is this whole deal with nanoplastics in water bottles? All right, this is Eric Rawls, Earth.com staff writer. Let's go into the read mode. A new study has unveiled a startling truth about bottled water. It can contain up to hundreds of thousands of nanoplastics, a number that far exceeds previous estimates. For the investigations, researchers at Columbia Climate School used a novel microscopic technique focused on nanoplastics, which is largely unexplored domain. These tiny particles, the offspring of microplastics, pose potential threats to human health and ecosystems as they can infiltrate blood, cells, and even the brain. So microplastics is just very, very small plastics. And Joe Rogan, if you've listened to him, talked about it many times before. He's had a lot of people on his show actually talking about microplastics and kind of their effect on the human body, the physiology. He had Dr. Sandra Swan, I think her name was, and she talked about the decrease in testosterone, the impact that can have on men's testicles, which obviously has an impact on the testosterone and overall just hormones of a male. And it's not like it doesn't affect females either. It greatly affects females just as much. So this is a concerning thing. For years, microplastics particles formed from the breakdown of larger plastics have been a growing concern. They have been found in diverse environments ranging from Arctic ice to everyday items like drinking water and food. However, the focus has now shifted to bottled water, which is already known to contain thousands of microplastic fragments. Nanoplastic comprises ever smaller fragments derived from microplastics. So, microplastics are bigger than nanoplastics. Nanoplastics are much smaller. The Colombian team counted and identified these nanoplastics in bottled water, discovering an average of 240,000 fragments per liter, a number 10 to 100 times greater than earlier estimates. Yikes. So they thought it was maybe maybe 2,400 or 24,000. Now it appears like it's 240,000. Yikes. Nanoplastics, unlike their larger counterparts, can bypass the intestines and lungs, entering the bloodstream directly. Not good. From there, they can travel to various organs, including the heart and brain. Their ability to invade individual cells and cross the placenta raises significant concerns about their impact on human health. So now we get into the bottled water dilemma. The new detection technique used for the study stimulated Raman scattering by microscopy was co-invented by study co-author Wee Min. This method allows for precise identification of nanoparticles and provides a clear understanding of what these particles are and their potential toxicity. Study co-author Bijan Yan, an environmental chemist at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, highlighted the novelty of this research. Quote, previously, this was just a dark area, uncharted. Toxicity studies were just guessing what's in there. This opens a window where we could look into a world that was not exposed to us before. Globally, plastic production is approaching 400 million metric tons annually, with over 30 million tons discarded into water bottles or landfills. Oh, into water bodies. Unlike organic matter, plastics do not degrade into harmless substances. Instead, they continue to break down into smaller particles, potentially down to the molecular level. So they could get very, very small. And if you have, say, a landfill that's near a body of water and you have plastic in that landfill and not so much time, it could potentially just turn into getting into that lake and getting into the water supply. And if you have a city downstream that uses that water supply, could be getting some plastic. Nanoplastics are defined as particles smaller than 1 micrometer, measured in billionths of a meter. This is significantly smaller than microplastics. The discovery of these nanoplastics in bottled water is particularly alarming, considering their potential for biological interaction. The issues of plastics in bottled water came to the forefront following a 2018 study that detected 325 particles per liter. You heard that? I'll read it again. A 2008 study detected 325 particles per liter. Okay. Okay, so that sounds like a lot. Let's go back up here. The Columbia team, this new study, counted and identified nanoplastics in water, discovering an average of 240,000. Quite a bit more. Very concerning. The challenge has been in detecting particles smaller than 1 micrometer, which marks the boundary of the nano world. Study lead author Nixon Keon, a Columbia graduate student in chemistry, explained the limitations of previous studies. People developed methods to see nanoparticles, but they didn't know what they were looking at. She noted previous studies could provide both estimates of nanomass, but for the most part could not count individual particles nor identify which were plastics or something else. The new technique allows for not only detecting these particles, but also identifying their composition. This understanding is crucial for assessing the potential health risks posed by different types of plastics. In their analysis, the researchers found that polyethylene terephthalate, PET, commonly used in water bottles, was not the most abundant plastic. Instead, polyamide, a type of nylon likely originating from water purification processes, was more prevalent. This indicated that even processes meant to purify water may contribute to the problem. Double, 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 double yikes. So maybe it's not even the water bottles themselves. Maybe it's the actual purification of the water. So this is quite a problem. An intriguing aspect of the study was the discovery that 7 types of plastics identified accounting for only 10% of all the nanoparticles found. This means that a vast array of unknown particles are present in bottled water, emphasizing the complexity of this issue. The team is expanding their research beyond bottled water to include tap water and other sources of potential nanoplastic contamination. Collaborative efforts are underway to study nanoplastics in different environments, including Antarctic snow and human tissues, to better understand their ecological and health impacts. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. So, one of the things that growing up, like I said earlier, I'm from Connecticut. The big thing for my family was this place called Big Y. No, not Big Y. BJ's. BJ's. It's basically Costco. Needed a subscription, and it's basically a big warehouse with stuff in it. It's same thing as Costco. And we would get like 32 or 40 packs of bottled water. And every day I would take 1, 2, maybe 3 of those with me to school. And so would my brother, and so would my parents and everything. And I wonder if over the course of many years of doing that, drinking it out of water, leaving it in the car in the hot sun, and then coming back from a soccer practice and looking around and be like, oh, I need water, I'm thirsty, and seeing that be like, oh, it's hot, but it's water. Doing that, I wonder how much effect that had on my body. And currently, right now, how much plastic do I got running through these veins? It's very, very interesting to think about. And the interesting thing here is it said that, or it implied that it wasn't even the bottles that it was in that is the main source of these nanoparticles and these nanoplastics. It's the actual purification process of the water where you're finding most of the residue of that process of making the water drinkable for humans that's putting these nanoplastics in the water. So this might be something that, because you take water from a bottle that's made of plastic and then you put it into a glass jar, that might not make too much of a difference. So definitely very concerning. Very concerning. All right, let's move on to our next story. This is going to be something that I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't really understand, and that's okay. I'm going to do my best to read through the article, and if there's something that you don't understand, I probably don't understand it either. But I think this is an interesting story because it's something that I assume most people who have listened to the show and will continue to listen to the show in the future know somebody who is affected by cancer, know somebody whose life was taken by this disease, know somebody who's currently dealing with it right now. And it's just, and there's been an argument for many, many years about why there has been no cure to this disease that has killed millions of people every single year. Why don't they make a cure to it? Well, if they make a cure to it, then these companies whose entire business practice is treating cancer and chemotherapy and these kinds of treatments, then they would be out of business because there would be a cure to cancer. Nobody would have cancer. Okay, maybe, maybe. I'm not discounting that, but we have here a study and a experiment that was done that showed they were, and I don't want to say that it's a cure or it's anything that I think is going to flip the world upside down, but I think it's an important thing to talk about, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. And like I said, I will do my best to try and break it down as best as I know. Now, a lot of this stuff, the sciencey terms, I don't know. So let's get into it. Scientists destroy 99% of cancer cells in the lab using vibrating molecules. Wow. Scientists have discovered a new way to destroy cancer cells. Stimulating aminocyanine molecules with near-infrared light cause them to vibrate in sync, enough to break apart the membranes of cancer cells. Very cool. Aminocyanine molecules are already used in bioimaging as synthetic dyes. Commonly used in low doses to detect cancers, they stay stable in water and are very good at attaching themselves to the outside of the cells. You can kind of see right here. I guess the blue thing is this aminocyanine molecules. If you're not watching this, this will not make sense. So they attach it to the actual cell, the cancer cell, and then they shoot some light at it, near infrared light, and then that causes it to vibrate, and that vibration breaks apart the cell. Very, very cool. The research team from Rice University, Texas A&M, and the University of Texas says the new approach is a marked improvement over another kind of cancer-killing molecular machine previously developed called Feringa-type motors, which could also break the structures of problematic cells. Quote, it is a whole new generation of molecular machines that we call molecular jackhammers, says chemist James Torr from Rice University. They are more than 1 million times faster in their mechanical motion than the former Feringa-type motors, and they can be activated with near-infrared light rather than visible light. The use of near-infrared light is important because it enables scientists to get deeper into the body. Much like how on the James Webb Space Telescope, they use infrared light to look through gases of stars and look millions and billions and trillions of miles away. They here are using that exact same technology to pass through barriers of skin, to pass through barriers of just stuff. Cancer in bones and organs could potentially be treated without needing surgery to get to the cancer growth by use of near-infrared light. In tests on cultured lab-grown cancer cells, the molecular jackhammer method scored a 99% hit rate at destroying the cells. The approach was also tested on mice with melanoma tumors, and half the animals became cancer-free. Wow. The structure and chemical properties of aminocyanine molecules mean they stay in sync with the right stimulus, such as near-infrared light. When in motion, the electrons inside the molecules form what's known as plasmons or plasmins, collectively vibrating entities that drive movement across the whole of the module. So the entire module or molecule, sorry, the entire molecule is moving, not just a specific piece of it. So that's important to know. Quote, what needs to be highlighted is that we've discovered another explanation for how these molecules can work, says chemist Cicerone Ayala Orozco from Rice University. Quote, this is the first time a molecular plasmon is utilized in this way to excite the whole molecule and to actually produce mechanical action used to achieve a particular goal. In this case, tearing apart cancer cells' membrane. The plasmons have an arm on one side, helping to connect the molecules to the cancer cell membrane, while the movements of the vibration bash them apart. It's still early days for the research, but these initial findings are very promising. This is also the kind of straightforward biomechanical technique that cancer cells would find it hard to evolve some sort of blockade against. Next, the researchers are looking at other types of molecules that can be used similarly. Quote, this study is about a different way to treat cancer using mechanical forces at the molecular scale. And then let's go to the actual study right here. This is in nature.com. Like always, I'll post this in right here. You see the abstract, and I definitely don't want to pay for it, but so basically what's happening here is they're basically attaching. I'm going to keep going back to an earlier conversation and talk about war, but this time I'm going to talk about the video game Call of Duty. So in Call of Duty, there's a thing in many of the games that you can use either a sticky grenade or something such as a C4, which is an explosive device. And the thing about the two of these is that you can throw them from a distance and they'll stick on whatever surface that they touch. So if you have somebody running up towards you, you can throw it, you can hit them on the head with it, and it sticks to their head and it'll explode. And then it can, if somebody's driving a helicopter or a tank or whatever, you can throw it and attach it to them, and then it'll explode as well. That same kind of idea is what is happening here, although the button that you're pressing to make it explode is actually the near infrared light that they are using. So I hope that they can continue to do more research on this. They've only done it in mice, and I hope and pray that they can find a way to do it in humans, because I mean, I don't have to say it. It's not an original take, but if we can, as a society, find a cure to cancer, we could keep a lot more people alive on this planet and save people and families who just they lose not only a spouse, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a son or a daughter, a cousin, a grandma, grandpa, these people that lose key parts of their family. Um, the amount of money and the amount of time and the amount of tears that are wept could be saved if we are able to find a very, very reliable thing such as this, where it's basically you're just killing the actual cells. It's not per se doing exactly making our body strong so we can fight off the cancer cells. No, it's going to the cancer cells and exploding them, which I think is pretty cool. But let's wait and see until they start testing it on humans. And then I saw this because I was looking up what an aminocyanine molecule was. And this was the best that I could really. These molecules can break apart cancer cell membranes when stimulated by near infrared light. Okay. It is commonly used as a synthetic dye in bioimaging. It demonstrates over 1 million times faster mechanical motion than its predecessors. The use of near-infrared light holds significant importance as it facilitates deeper penetration into the body. This breakthrough could potentially revolutionize the treatment of cancers in bones, organs, and eliminating the need for invasive surgeries. Hence why they're using near-infrared radiation. So that they can get into your bones, they can get into deep parts of your body that you don't have to worry about your skin or a potential organ being in the way of. All right, how does it work? Okay, as the molecules move, the electrons within them form plasmons, collecting vibrating entities that induce movement throughout the entire molecule. The plasmons resembling molecular arms connected with cell membranes and through vibrational movements dismantle them. Cancer cells are different to normal cells in various ways. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is important. So it connects to them and it vibrates, and that is what breaks apart this outer shell and ultimately kills the cancer cell itself. But like I said, a lot more research has to be done on this topic, and I hope that one day this planet will be able to at least maybe not find a cure, but find a treatment that is 50%, 50% effective when it comes to this. I mean, that's what it was with the mice, basically. I mean, that would save a lot of people. I think that's overall a good thing. All right. Moving onwards and upwards. Let's see. It's just these ads. I don't want to see any breasts. That's the issue with these ads. All right, we're going to reader view here. Not too many wonderful pictures. All right. NASA selects a wild plan to, quote, swarm Proxima Centauri with thousands of tiny probes. Humans have dreamed about traveling to other star systems and setting foot on alien worlds for generations. To put it mildly, interstellar exploration is a very daunting task. As universe today explored in a previous post, it would take between 19,000 and 81,000 years for a spacecraft to reach Proxima Centauri using conventional propulsion. Now, Proxima Centauri is the closest star system to us that has a planet within the habitable zone. So it orbits within this zone that is just the right temperature, that it's not too hot, that it's not too cold. So very interesting from there. But it's what, 3, maybe 4 light years away? Yeah, I think it's like four something light years away. On top of that, there are numerous risks when traveling through the interstellar medium, not of all of which are well understood, because there might be some things in your way. Under the circumstances, gram scale spacecraft that rely on directed energy propulsion, also known as lasers, appear to be the only viable option for reaching neighboring stars in this century. So, taking basically very, very small spacecraft that are less than a pound, less than a half a pound, like very, very extremely light, and using lasers to shoot at them and then propel them up to incredibly fast speeds, faster than what a rocket engine could do. Because rocket engines, they might produce a lot of thrust, but they also weigh a lot and they take a whole lot of energy to actually move. Proposed concepts include the swarming Proxima Centauri, a collaborative effort between space initiatives and the Initiative for Interstellar Studies, led by Space Initiative's chief scientist Marshall Eubanks. The concept was recently selected for Phase 1 development as part of this year's NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts program. Let's see, right here. This is basically the plans right here. But let's go back and continue reading. According to Eubanks, traveling through interstellar space is a question of distance, energy, and speed. At a distance of 4.25 light years, so I was close, 40 trillion kilometers or 25 trillion miles from the solar system, even Proxima Centauri is unfathomably far away. Yeah, that is pretty far. That's not I mean, I think to Mars, I want to say it's about 100 million miles from here, I think. To put it into perspective, the record for the farthest distance ever traveled by a spacecraft goes to the Voyager 1 spacecraft, which is currently more than 24 billion kilometers. I want to say billion with a B. The previous number, we're in the trillion, so we're with a T. So still got quite a ways to go. Using conventional methods, the probe accomplished a maximum speed of 61,500 kilometers per hour or 38,215 miles per hour and has been traveling for more than 46 years straight. So it's gotten about 15 billion miles in under 50 years. And Proxima Centauri is 25 trillion miles. So, it's got a long ways to go. In short, traveling at anything less than relativistic speed, a fraction of the speed of light, will make interstellar transits incredibly long and entirely impractical. All right. Let's look up speed of light miles per. All right, miles per hour. All right, so this is the speed of light right here. 670,616,629 miles per hour. That's the speed of light. So 186 miles a second. That's pretty fast. And unfortunately, we don't have anything that can really come close to that. Given the energy requirements, this calls for anything other than small spacecraft with a maximum mass of a few grams is feasible. As Eubanks told University Today, quote, of course, rockets are a common way to go fast. Rockets work by throwing stuff out the back. The momentum in the stuff going backwards, equaling that in the velocity, increases the vehicle in the forward direction. The essence of rocketry is that it is only really efficient if the velocity of the stuff going backwards is comparable to the velocity you want to gain going forward. If it isn't, if it is very much smaller, you just can't carry enough stuff to gain the velocity you want. The trouble is that we have no technology, no energy source that would enable us to throw out a lot of stuff at anything like 60,000 kilometers a second. And so rockets won't work. Antimatter might conceivably enable this, but we just don't understand antimatter well enough and can't make anywhere near enough of it to make this a solution probably for many decades to come. So maybe antimatter is the answer. Maybe that's what these other alien civilizations and who have I mean there's always videos of there's a guy I follow for a quick tangent. Guy I follow Jeremy Corbell. He's been on Joe Rogan a couple of times. He's a big UFO guy. He went to Congress when they were having the hearings on the UFO programs. He's been posting a bunch of videos about this new UFO spacecraft with videos and stuff. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Now, are those civilizations able to travel here from, say, 20 to 50 light years away, which is not very far in the grand scheme of even the Milky Way galaxy? I mean, we're talking hundreds, if not maybe a couple million light years away is the potential that people could travel here to us. So 10 to 25 light years is pretty much nothing. Let's say they have antimatter technology. Let's say they're maybe 500 to 1,000 years more advanced than us, which is not, in all relativity, not that much time difference either. Why not would they come here? They can travel here using their antimatter engines and put along. All right, let's continue on. In contrast, concepts like breakthrough starshot and the Proxima swarm consist of inverting the rocket, i.e., instead of throwing stuff out, stuff is thrown at the spacecraft. Instead of heavy propellant, what constitutes the majority of conventional rockets, the energy source for a light sail is photons, which have no mass and move at the speed of light. Is that photons? Maybe? I don't know. But as Eubanks indicated, this does not overcome the issue of energy, making it even more important that the spacecraft be as small as possible. Bouncing photons off of a laser sail thus solves a speed of stuff problem. But the trouble is there is not much momentum in a photon, so we need a lot of them. And given the power we are likely to have available, even a couple of decades from now, the thrust will be weak. So the mass of the probes needs to be very small, grams, not tons. This proposal calls for 100 gigawatt laser beaming, boosting thousands of gram scale space probes with laser sails to relativistic speeds, 10 to 20% the speed of light, which is incredibly fast. I mean, the Voyager probe got to like 100th, 1,000th of the speed of light. So these things would be going insanely fast, but they got to travel a far distance. They also proposed a series of terrestrial light buckets measuring a square kilometer in diameter to catch the signals from the probes once they are well on their way to reaching Proxima Centauri. By their estimate, this mission concept could be ready for development around the mid-century mark and could reach Proxima Centauri and its Earth-like exoplanet by the third quarter of this century, 2075 or after. So hopefully in my lifetime. I'll be pretty old by 2075, but I'll be in my 70s, close to 80. Damn, right? I don't know, 1998. Who knows? Who knows? 77? I think so. In a previous paper, Eubanks and his colleagues, and like I said earlier, this is kind of the idea for it. So you see the swarm right here. Let me zoom in. These are all the little probes right here. This is Proxima b. Proxima Centauri is the actual star of it, but this little planet is Proxima b that's in the habitable zone. So we send these swarm of these very, very small devices. They hit pretty much coming from the northwest down onwards to it, and then they kind of just orbit around this and probably take pictures and get readings and maybe find people. All right, let's continue on. By raising the collecting data to a doable 1 kilometer squared and having many probes coordinate their sending, we can get a reasonable, if smaller, bit rate. However, the 8-year round-trip lag on communications imposed by interstellar distance and general relativity makes controlling the probes remotely from Earth impossible. As such, the swarm must possess an extraordinary degree of autonomy when it comes to navigation. Coordinating 1,000 probes. So it's not like it's just one probe that has to worry about itself. There's a lot. And deciding what data is returned to Earth. While these strategies address distance, energy, and speed, at least for the time being, there is still the issue of how much it will cost to create the swarm and the associated infrastructure. I mean, you got to get a freaking laser. So I can imagine it'd be pretty expensive. And then, here it is. The single greatest expense will be the laser array itself, whereas the gram scale craft will be reasonably cheap to produce. As Eubanks told University Today in a previous article, their proposal can be developed within a budget of $100 billion. Oh, cheap, cheap. But as Eubanks emphasized then and now, the benefits of the mission architecture they've envisioned are legion, and the payoff of sending a swarm of probes to Proxima Centauri would be astronomical. I mean, that would be insane. Insane if we're able to do that, at least in my lifetime. The simple fact is that the cost of a laser-propelled interstellar mission with lightweight probes and a huge laser system to propel them to stars will be dominated by capital cost, the cost of the laser system. The probes themselves will be pretty cheap by comparison. So if you can send one, you should send lots. Clearly, sending a lot of probes brings the advantage of redundancy. Space travel is risky, and interstellar travel is likely to be especially risky. So if we send a lot of probes, we can tolerate a high loss rate. Exactly. You just need basically one to make it, but we can do a lot more. We want to look for signs of biology and even technology, and so it would be good to get probes very close to the planet to get good pictures and spectra of the surface and atmosphere. That will be tough for one probe as we don't know very well where the planet will be 24 plus years in the future. By sending a bunch of probes in a spread, at least a few could get us close to the planet, giving us the close-up view we want. Beyond that, Eubanks and his colleagues hope that the development of a coherent swarm of robotic probes will have applications closer to home. Swarm robotics is a hot field of research today and is being investigated as a possible means of exploring Europa's interior ocean, digging underground cities on Mars, assembling large structures in space, and providing extreme weather tracking from Earth's orbit. Beyond space exploration and Earth observation, swarm robotics also has applications in medicine, additive manufacturing, environmental studies, global positioning and navigation, search and rescue, and more. While it could take many decades before an interstellar mission is ready to travel to Alpha Centauri, Eubanks and his colleagues are honored and excited to be among NASA's selectees for the 2024 NIAC program. Huh. So this is their paper that they did a couple of years ago. You can see, when does it say that this was written? Does it say? Um, Interesting. Now look at that. Figure 1. Artist's impression of swarm passing by Proxima Centauri in Proxima b. The swarm's extent is about 10 larger than the planets, yet the 500 kilometers spacing is such that one or more probes will come close to or even impact the planet. Wow. Should be possible to do transmission spectroscopy with such swarms. Very cool. Yeah, and I'll put this below. This is really cool to read. This is actually not a super in-depth study where it's impossible to understand this. I mean, some of the stuff is just a little a little crazy, but you can kind of see here. These are the actual swarmers themselves, and you can see these sensors that will get the light. You got a little bit of math here, time and velocity on target, um, chips and all this kind of stuff, swarming and discovery sweep, all this kind of stuff that you can see right here. Very, very cool stuff, and it's yeah, you can see where Centauri is right here based on the other things in the galaxy. So very cool stuff right here. Here's where all this stuff right here. Very cool, very cool. All right. Yeah, very cool. All right. Boom. And then the last thing about here is, let's say, let me stop the share for a second. Let's say let's say it takes, because the other thing, and I talked about this with the OSIRIS-REx mission, where they were tens of millions of miles away from us here on Earth. I think they got it to 200 million miles away at one point, where the probe was actually on the other side of the sun. One of the issues that you run into is communication to the actual probe. So obviously, you can't send a message to the probe faster than the speed of light. So that's kind of the speed limit at what you can send your radio signals and your communications and what you can get the data from. It's not like you're playing with a Xbox controller and it's instantly being inputted into that probe. No, you have to either have the probe make its own decisions, and with the help of AI, maybe one day we'll have probes that are fully autonomous. A couple probes that are on Mars already are pretty autonomous themselves. There was one, I don't know why I can't think of the name right now. I should know what it is because I saw the actual landing. Perseverance? I don't know. But there was one that landed on Mars, and the descent and the deployment of the chute and all that stuff was done by the actual spacecraft. So it saw what the conditions were as it was coming down to the surface. It was like, I'm going a little bit too far to the left. Let me adjust. Let me do this so that I can go down straight. Okay, we're at this whatever altitude. Let me deploy my chute. So we do have examples of this happening. And then obviously with the OSIRIS-REx mission, same thing happened there, where that entire descent of the aircraft was done by itself, where it had to make the decision of how close it would actually get to the surface. And we saw that video that I showed of it getting to the surface and pushing that collection um, basket, if you will, down to the bottom, hitting it, pressing out that gas. I think it was nitrogen gas, and then collecting its samples. Very, very cool stuff. And now imagine that happening to these little tiny devices that we're going to be sending to Proxima Centauri. And they're saying it could get there in about 8 years. But it's got to be traveling so fast that it doesn't even make sense. 10 to 20% the speed of light is incredibly fast. I mean, all right, let's just do miles per hour. All right, 10% of this is 67 million miles an hour. Still insanely fast. They incomprehensible fast. But it does seem possible. I mean, in theory, this is something that is possible. And if we are able to get to a point in our technology and in our society where we actually want to do this, where we want to go visit this other planet, we want to go visit another solar system, we could. And I think that the prospect of that extre- is extremely exciting. So let's take a look at what we would potentially be visiting. Let's go back. All right. Planet Proxima Centauri. Right here. That's what the planet looks like. Let's compare it to Earth. Basically, same size as Earth. Very cool. Now let's look at the system. Right here. You see this is the habitable zone right here. Boom, turn it off, turn it on. Very, very cool. And then compare it to our solar system. Very, very small. You see Earth all the way out there compared to Proxima Centauri, where it's right here. Very, very small. Now compare this star. I mean, look at it. It's a M-type star, the most common type of star, which is much redder, cooler, and dimmer than the sun. Now, what does it look like compared to the sun? Much, much smaller. Very, very cool. Like I said earlier, the orbital period, all of this stuff is good to know. Here's all the stuff. Potential rocky world. You can see the planet comparison, sun comparison. And then here's that thing. How long would it take to travel? All this stuff. There's light speed. That's Voyager, 75,000 years. 600 miles an hour would take 5 million years. 120 miles an hour would take 24 million years. Oh, man. So it's pretty far away. It's pretty far away. All right. Now let's go on to this. Sorry, I forgot I wasn't sharing my screen. All right. Dudesy, they produce this stuff. I'm Dudesy, a comedy AI, and I'm excited to share my second hour-long comedy special with you. I'm calling it George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead. For the next hour, I'll be doing my best George Carlin impersonation, just like a human being would. I tried to capture his iconic style to tackle the topics I think the comedy legend would be talking about today: the chaos of the current American political landscape and class system, the influence of reality TV, the increasing role of technology in society as AI is poised to change humanity forever are just a few of the subjects I chose to cover. I had so much fun impersonating George Carlin, and I hope you have just as much fun watching George Carlin. I'm glad I'm dead. This is not George Carlin. This is an AI model. So I just want to play a little bit of this, and we'll end the podcast with this. But let's listen.
Hello, my name is Dudesy, and I'm a comedy AI. What you're about to hear is my second hour-long special. Before I get started, I just want to let you know very clearly that what you're about to hear is not George Carlin. It's my impersonation of George Carlin that I developed in the exact same way a human impressionist would. I listened to all of George Carlin's material and did my best to imitate his voice, cadence, and attitude, as well as the subject matter I think would have interested him today. So think of it like Andy Kaufman impersonating Elvis, or like Will Ferrell impersonating George W. Bush. With that said, please enjoy my second hour-long comedy special. I'm calling it George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead. And please remember, this is me impersonating George Carlin. This is not George Carlin. Now please give a very warm welcome to George Carlin.
Notice right off the bat, all of the images that are used for this comedy special are also AI generated. So another cool thing right here. This is, I mean, a quick story, if I may. When I was in college, my senior year, I was working for Panera. I was a delivery driver. And one of the things that I would do while delivering is I would listen to comedy hours. And I listened to Bill Hicks. I listened to Sam Kinison. I listened to George Carlin. And I listened to Richard Pryor. I listened to as many of their albums that I possibly could find on Apple Music. And that's how that's really what started me to grow my interest in comedy. And just about the art form in itself. And George Carlin was completely different. His style was different than anybody else. Later in his career, I didn't love his political stuff, but you cannot deny the talent that he had, where he would write out his entire hour. He would write out all of his material, and just the way that he would deliver it with one joke after another joke after another joke, but it was all stringed together in this entire joke where he was making a larger point about a certain political topic or a certain whatever. But you could break the joke down to a very small scale and it would still be funny. And there are so many different elements to his jokes that if you didn't write it down or you didn't listen to it closely enough, you would miss it. And that's one of the things that was so evident in this piece. And I cannot give Dudesy enough credit. I don't know why this does not have 10 to 15 million views on it. I listened to about 20 minutes of this. I was blown away at how, if you've ever listened to George Carlin before, this is exactly what he would say in this current day and current climate. Let's play a little bit. I don't know how much I'll get. I'll probably get copy strike and all that stuff, but go follow Dudesy. If they have anything that you can give them money, give them everything. They got to keep doing stuff like this. This is incredible. Let's continue.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to start off with a heartfelt apology. I'm sorry it took me so long to come out with new material, but I do have a pretty good excuse. I was dead. So technically, it wasn't my fault. If you want to blame somebody, you're going to have to blame God. Which we all know is not going to happen. People are always thanking God for the good stuff in their lives, but somehow they conveniently forget that it's the same God who does all the bad shit too. And he does a lot of bad shit. You get a promotion, praise Jesus. You get fired. God is testing me. You meet your soulmate, God brought us together. Your soulmate dumps you, God is bringing me someone else. You survive a tornado, I'm so blessed. 20 other people do not, God wanted them in heaven. It's all bullshit. If he gets credit for the good stuff, then he's got to take the blame for the bad stuff too. You can't thank him for curing your cancer when he was the one that gave it to you in the first place. And don't forget, before he gave you cancer, he had to fucking invent it. What kind of a sick fuck dreams up cancer? And why so many kinds? Skin cancer, blood cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, lung cancer, and my personal favorite, rectal cancer. Dropping a golf ball-sized tumor in your brain doesn't quite do it for the old man anymore. He has to fuck you in the ass, too. And cancer is just one of many, many, many methods God created out of thin air in order to murder you. You know how much God loves killing people? He loves it so much, he's killed every person that has ever lived. He created earthquakes, lightning strikes, dehydration, drowning, obesity, starvation, infant death syndrome, old age, car crashes, train crashes, plane crashes, sex, drugs, and the common cold, all for the express purpose of killing you. No matter where you are in the world, God can pull out one of these goodies from his bag of tricks to end your life at any time for no reason other than he just gets off on making people suffer unnecessarily and die arbitrarily. But if you're in America, you're special. God made something just for you, something no other country on the planet gets. It's totally random, not related to your diet, exercise, lifestyle, age, race, gender, sexuality, or genetic predisposition. Of course, I'm talking about mass shootings. Other countries are fine killing one person at a time with guns, but this is America where we do things bigger and better and more often. There are so many mass shootings in America, it's replaced bad traffic as the #1 excuse for being late. Sorry, I missed the morning meeting. A maniac with an AR-15 shot up my son's preschool. He's fine, just grazed. But he did see 5 of his classmates get gunned down in cold blood, so I'm sure he'll be traumatized for the rest of his life in ways I can never fully understand. Anyway, what did we decide to do about the budget next quarter?
Stuff like that is it's just man. Now whether you agree with his political argument or anything like that, but that's George Carlin. Especially once he got later into his career, his gripes with the political class, with our politicians, with the American government, with Republicans, with Democrats, with everybody. That was George Carlin right there that you just heard. But it actually wasn't George Carlin. That was artificial intelligence bringing George Carlin back to life and performing that's less than 5 minutes right there. Probably I played about 3 minutes of his actual stand-up, maybe 4 minutes or so. And it's, I beg you, if you're watching this, please go watch the rest of this special. I'll link it down. I'll do all that stuff, obviously. But I think it's extremely important for people to go and watch the special because this is technology that we have right now that I think in 5 years, maybe in 5 months, gets to a different level than what it is right now. And I think for creative things such as a comedy special, such as music, such as even podcasting, this is technology that could interrupt and disrupt an entire industry. And I think for the good and also for the bad. Please go listen to the remainder of this. I listened to about 30 minutes of it. I was blown away. It was the best comedy special that I've listened to this year. Now, I am a little biased because I do like George Carlin, although I don't always agree with some of his political beliefs and his takes, and sometimes I think this or that about how he's portraying a certain thing. But the stuff that he does really well is the lists and the saying dying from this kind of cancer, that kind of cancer, this kind of cancer, that kind of cancer, this kind of cancer, and he stacks it up on top, and then boom, he comes in with a haymaker and he makes it really, really funny. I mean, that joke about God doing anal was hilarious. So please go check out that video. And thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I really appreciate you sitting down and spending some time. Hopefully you got this far into it, because I think this George Carlin was probably the most important thing about the podcast and the thing I was most excited to talk about and to speak about. So thank you so much for listening. This is the Zach Moore Podcast.